Good evening and welcome to the Weston League of Women Voters Candidates Night. My name is Katty Chase. I'm the president of the Weston League. The League is a nonpartisan organization that was founded in 1920 to educate women on how to participate in politics soon after they got the right to vote. Despite our name, we have many male members. Many thanks to all of the candidates running for office this year. Serving as a town elected official is a commitment of many hours of volunteer work to keep this town running smoothly. The order of business tonight will be non-contested candidates first, then those running for the select board, then those running for Recreation Commission, and we will end our evening with the two candidates who are running for School Committee. In each section, the candidates will give a brief presentation of 3 to 4 minutes, followed by a Q&A for those candidates. The whole event is being recorded by Weston Media, and the recording will be available to be seen afterwards on demand at Weston Media after a couple of days of putting it together. So we're going to start with the uncontested candidates, and Rip Hastings is running for another one-year term as town moderator. Rip, why don't you start us off? Oh, unmute.
Thanks to the League for sponsoring this forum, and thanks for inviting me. I'm running this spring, apparently uncontested, for re-election as town moderator. There are several other unopposed candidates and a couple of important positions that are contested, and I hope you'll devote most of your attention to the contests. But on behalf of the unopposed candidates, I do hope that you will also give us your thoughtful consideration and your votes on May 2nd at Town Hall. I'm running for town moderator because I feel I can make a community contribution in that role. Based on some of the feedback I've received, I seem to be doing an okay job. But also based on some of the feedback I've received, I'm aware that I could do better in many respects. I'll keep working at it. Let me call your attention to a couple of the things that I've been up to in an effort to improve town government in Weston. As you may know, there's a town meeting survey out there, and I'd like to remind you of that. It'll finally conclude at the town meeting, I've decided. And if you haven't already weighed in, please click on the survey link in the hub or on the town website. And at town meeting, you'll see that I'm proposing we establish a town meeting study committee to review how town meeting, our legislative branch, is working for us and to formulate recommendations to make it more inclusive, more effective, and more responsive to the needs and desires of the town. As you all know, the open town meeting is how we've governed ourselves in Weston since before the revolution. And just a side note, some of those early town meetings were heavily attended by most of the residents of the town. The numbers exceeded 100 in many cases. We don't gather in town meeting just to vote on stuff. We do gather as citizen legislators to debate and make decisions collectively as a community. At one time or another, most all significant municipal issues come to town meeting for our collective decisions. A budget, a bylaw change, road improvements, a new fire station, and they all come to town meeting as proposals that have been developed on our behalf by our elected representatives, such as the select board, the planning board, the school committee, the recreation commissioners. Those matters on the warrant for town meeting are topics and proposals. They are not yet decisions of the town, and they are not set in stone. They're brought forward to be considered, debated, and even modified, and only then to be acted upon by the voters participating in town meeting. Is open town meeting the right way for us in Weston to govern ourselves? Can it be made better? Does it still work? Opinions differ, and the last time we seriously looked at these questions was more than 10 years ago. And that's why I suggest we do it again. Please let me know if you have any questions about this proposed town meeting study committee. Please come to town meeting on the 4th with your comments and questions, and please give that proposal and the other proposals up for discussion at town meeting your thoughtful consideration and support. Bring a friend, carpool, arrive early. We will start on time. We will move right along. And this year's annual town meeting is likely to be just one evening, I think, and probably done early. Finally, please remember to vote at Town Hall on May 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Rip. And now we're going to hear from Adrian Giska, who is running for a 5-year term on the planning board.
Good evening. My name's Adrian Giske. I've been living in Weston for 21 years. I'm married to Alfred Adelot for 21 years. We're both architects. My educational background is an MIT degree, Master of Architecture, and from Harvard, a Master of Architecture in Urban Design. I've had professional experience being licensed architect for 40 years plus years. My areas of expertise is historic restoration, office design, medical facilities, and multi-unit housing. Planning experience with various agencies in Washington State, Connecticut, New Haven, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Harvard University Planning Office. Activities have involved zoning bylaw drafting, implementation, traffic planning, parking studies, site planning, mixed-use development, and design district guidelines. And I was a circuit rider for the Regional Planning Agency of South Central Connecticut. But getting to Weston, my hope and my vision for Weston is to maintain our unique rural character and protect our open space. We have a need for senior housing and affordable multifamily housing. We must protect our existing density by providing multifamily units that are in scale and context with our existing fabric. Weston is primarily a single family zoned town, and this must be protected from future state mandates and agendas. We have many states in our country right now that are trying to outlaw single family zoning. It would be helpful to hire an independent demographic consultant to discover existing age and income data that is needed to reveal what the market absorption rate will be for all the units in the pipeline right now. Do we have what we need now? What's the actual number that is right for Weston? And I want to keep Weston's density outcome in the hands of Weston residents. Keep Weston, the Weston that we moved here for. And a lot of us tonight are running unopposed. Please come out to vote. My family came here from a small island off the coast of Norway because we were at that time family, there was a monarchy. They came here to be able to vote. Please come out to vote. Do not pass by, be out of town, or anything else. It's the most important thing that you have. And according to what Rip was saying, I agree. The town meeting is unique to New England, and it is another thing you never want to miss. Please come out to vote. Thank you.
Thank you,
any
Adrian.
questions? Do we have any? Probably.
Yeah, any questions for either Adrian or Rip? If you will raise your hand. Oh, yeah, there we go. Alex.
Patty, I just want to thank both Rip and Adrian for stepping up and continuing to serve our town. Thank you both.
Thank you. And just one more comment before I be quiet. We have 1,023 units in the pipeline. They're in various states. Some of them are contested in court. Some of them are being appealed. Some of them are still getting permitted. That's a lot of units for a town that has 4,007 homes. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments, compliments? Okay, seeing none, I will, we can go on to the next portion of the meeting, which is the three candidates for the select board. And I particularly wanted to feature them because they are all new to the board, and we are going up from 3 to 5 members of the select board this starting after this election. So, Rebecca Mercury, would you be willing to start us off?
Thank you, and thank you, Caddy and the League, for hosting this. My name is Rebecca Mercury, and I'm honored to be a candidate for Select Board. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Weston, Massachusetts, in Chicopee, which is just outside of Springfield. I attended Smith College with a double major in mathematics and economics. My husband Lou and I have been married for 40 years. Lou grew up in Weston, and we've lived here for 15 years in the home where he was raised. We have 2 adult children and 2 grandchildren. Our daughter's a graduate of Weston High. My connection to this town is deep, and I truly care about the town's future. Over the years, I've seen how much Weston residents care about the decisions that are made. Community involvement matters, and it must be respected and encouraged. I'm running for the Select Board because this is an important time for Weston. We're facing large-scale development proposals, major infrastructure needs, and new state mandates. These challenges require steady and thoughtful leadership that examines the options carefully and bases decisions on solid information. Throughout my career as a manager in high tech, a vice president at Fidelity Investments, and now overseeing safety training for a renewable energy leader, I've dealt with complex problems and managed significant resources. I know how to dig into the details, ask the right questions, and identify what truly matters to guide sound decision making. These skills are essential as we consider projects such as housing, new schools, the water tank replacement, and upgrades to our fire stations. We need to sharpen the pencil, keep spending and taxes under control, and make smart investments in Weston's future. Looking further, the responsibilities of the Select Board extend beyond the financial oversight. The primary duty of the Select Board is to ensure that the life and property of Weston residents are protected. Public safety, along with the amenities and services that make Weston such a special place, must remain at the forefront of our decisions. Change will happen, but that does not mean that Weston must fundamentally change. We should listen carefully to concerns and work towards solutions that address critical needs while preserving the character and values that residents cherish. I love this community. I want Weston to be a place where people feel heard, respected, and confident in the decisions being made. I'm prepared to put in the time and energy required to help Weston thrive while maintaining the qualities that make it such a great place to live. I would be grateful for your vote on May 2nd, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anupam, Sakdev, would you like to go next?
Certainly. Thank you, Carrie, for doing this event. It's my first adventure, I guess, for even though I have lived in town for 30 plus years. Our children grew up and both graduated from Weston High School. And of course, now they are gone. And so we are experiencing life with kids in Weston and now post kids in Weston. I continue to work at my software company, and I'm hoping to do so while I'm working on the select board here. So I run a software company which has been in business for over 30 years. And the reason, that's spectacular is because we've gone through light years of change in those 30 years as far as technology is concerned. 30 years ago, there was no web and so on. So the key to survival for us has been of course, staying on top of the technology curve, but also some long-term planning in terms of debt and what service, sustainable debt looks like and so forth. When things were easy money and a lot of our peers went under. So what I'm hoping is that I can bring some value to the town in navigating the change that is coming to town, for sure. And also bring a broader perspective that is community-based to the select board. The Weston town spent a lot of effort in going from 3 select board seats to 5. 2 big votes, 600 plus. And I've always been at the big meeting, in every meeting, but passively voting. And now I'm hoping to participate, maybe in some process here. So the fact is that while we bring this perspective, the Western is faced with challenges that are coming from several different conflicting forces, right? Number one, and my numbers are just sort of taken from outside the town sources. So once we delve in, we might have something different. But what I understand now is that over 62% of our households are without children. Only 38% have children. The school system still continues to absorb about 50 to 60% of the budget, however you want to count it. And then, of course, our tax structure is probably the most constraining in the state of Massachusetts. So the way I understand it, we have 96% of our tax revenue coming from residential, 4% coming from commercial, in contrast to all the towns around us. And of course, with that, we've tried to maintain the character that everybody here wants to preserve, so that's good news. And then, of course, but now we do have, as you know, the challenges of compliance coming from 3A and 40B. We are kind of on a track. I hope that's a good track to maintain it to comply while we are maintaining the character of the town, and I have some good thoughts there. And then, of course, we have a huge capital budget that is in the cards here, 400 million for the school system, 50 million for the fire department, 40 million for the water system. So putting it all together and trying to maintain what we know without raising our taxes, maintaining our character, is going to be a significant challenge that requires considered planning, financial discipline, and of course we want to hope to maintain our school system and the character of the town in the face of all this challenge. So that's where I think we are. There are lots of thoughts on going forward, but we will save them for the future this time here, I guess, when we have time. So thank you very much. So that's what I think I'm trying to get into and hope to accomplish while we continue to and of course we are all interested in maintaining the value of our school system, the value of life that we know it in Weston, which has been absolutely fantastic. So hopefully we can make a contribution to the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Anupam. And the third candidate is Al Alot.
Hi, Caddy. Thank you. Well, these are tough acts to follow, and a lot of what I'm going to be saying actually is a little bit of a repetition from what others have said before me. I've lived in Weston since 1971, and I've lived in the same house since 1971, and it's a special place that I hope we can preserve for future generations. My children grew up here. They went to the Weston schools. Now my daughters are a neuroscientist and a wildlife geneticist. I have 2 grandchildren who are in college. And as my wife Adrian said before, when she was talking about joining the planning board, she's also an architect, and she is my partner in business and in life. We work together on all sorts of things. My education includes a Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Pennsylvania, Master of Architecture from Harvard, Fulbright grant in Europe to study post-war rebuilding and rehabilitation. As an architect, I've worked on projects of all types and sizes. My firm specializes in historical restoration, affordable housing, land planning, and single-family homes, including many in Weston that we've done over the years. I've served for 41 years on the Historical Commission, and chair of the Crescent Street Historic District Commission for 32 years, 23 years on the Planning Board, 17 as chair. I'm a member of the Case Building and MBTA 3A working groups and a recipient of the Carter Medal for Community Service. I believe that background and experience will help the select board address the complex and daunting challenges that my predecessors have described that are facing the town today. And here's just some of what the select board is looking at in the foreseeable future. And again, this was alluded to by people who've spoken before me. First of all, loose ends. It would be great if we could wrap up some of the things or resolve them that the town has been working with for a number of years. Selling the Case buildings, resolving JST, working out.
我也是把门关上吧，
What?
那谁把门开？谁最后关的？不是
I'm sorry?
That's a bomb. Bomb.
Just continue, Al.
No, I don't think it's a bomb. Somebody may not be muted, though.
That's what it is.
Okay,
Oh, okay. I think they are now.
continue.
Okay. Working out the 40Bs and also coming to a resolution on what we're going to do about Route 30. That's the loose ends. In the pipeline, in addition, we're looking at the construction of the MBTA 3A project at Boston Properties that town meeting voted for. We're looking at resolving and constructing the water system upgrade. We're looking at finalizing the design and building the two fire stations, resolving the issues with the school, what to do about Regis East, accessory dwelling units, which were passed at town meeting a couple of meetings ago, and other zoning bylaws that are coming up in the fall meeting and perhaps later. On the horizon, we're looking at what might be happening at Pope St. John the 23rd. They have a proposal for senior housing. So does Campion Center. We want to work out what that is going to look like. We're looking for new zoning mandates from the state. We're not quite sure what they will be, but we feel that they're definitely coming. We have to work out the town budget and how we're going to pay for all of the capital projects that are now in the pipeline. We're looking for unified plan recommendations. I think we're going to see those in the fall. The updated HPP report, which should be helpful. What's going to happen with the other side of Regis West? That seems to be a little up in the air right now. Then we have senior housing, startup housing, and affordable housing needs. So we have that's a heavy agenda. And I think that the people who are currently on the planning board and running for the planning board this year should be able to make a dent in those and set us off along the proper path. At least I'm ready to give it my best effort.
Thank you, Al. Are there any questions for the candidates for Select Board? Let me ask that for clarification. I believe the way it's going to work at the election is that you will all be on the ballot, and although the Select Board only is looking for two people to fill 3-year terms, and one person will fill a 2-year term, and that will be determined by how many votes you get. Is that
Correct.
correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, anybody have a question for these candidates? Yes, Tack.
Yeah, Al, you said trying to follow your list of overwhelming things the town is facing. You mentioned Regis East. What do you mean by Regis East?
Regis is divided. The Regis campus is divided by Wellesley Street.
Yeah.
Currently, a real estate developer is working with Regis to develop the portion of the campus on the east side of Wellesley
Okay.
Street.
Yeah. Okay.
You may have known a little bit about that. They're currently presenting before the planning board and the select board.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for these candidates? Okay, you all know how to raise your hand on Zoom, right? Down at the bottom in the middle. Okay, in that case, we will thank you all very much for running and being willing to take on that overwhelming list of work to be done. And we will move on to the next section, which is the candidates running for the Recreation Commission. There
Okay.
are 4 candidates running for, yes, Jack?
There's someone trying to send a private message. So Bin Mang should either do chat or something because I can't access your private message. Or she needs to
Okay.
raise her hand. Okay,
Would
thank you.
Bin Meng like to raise their hand and ask a question?
No, yes, it's an error.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, then we will go on to the 4 candidates for 3 positions on the Recreation Commission. And we will start with Chica. Are you willing to start us off?
Sure, why not? How are you? How's everyone today?
Great, thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Great,
All right, let me
thanks.
see if I can get my camera to work here. Sorry about that. Use camera. Oh, wow. Okay. Sorry. Can you guys see me? Yeah.
Yep.
All right,
Yes.
perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Chika Ture. First of all, I just kind of want to say thank you to all the candidates that willing to step out and volunteer and in this capacity and help out all day, as a volunteer. And this is actually I have to this is a volunteer position, and people are so willing to take their time off of their regular life and their travels and vacation just to volunteer and serve this great town of ours. So I'm very grateful for that, and just amazing. Just goes to tells you what an amazing town this is, and the rich in resources and whatnot. So that kind of makes me very proud to be here and be a part of this. So I just want to say thank you to all of you that wants to do this. And anyways, I am Chika Ture, and I am a registered nurse and also a nurse practitioner, and been in this profession for a long, long time. And when the opportunity to be in the recreation came about 3 years ago, I was delighted to be able to do it. I'm like, yeah, just kind of walks right into my alley. So I'm like, it's kind of like in my alley. So I wanted to do it. So, and it's been a good experience. I raised 3 daughters, still raising 3 daughters in this town. And my oldest, who is now a sophomore in college. And then I also have two other daughters, a high schooler who's a sophomore in high school, and then my baby, who will not call herself a baby, but is in seventh grade. And so my children have loved this town, and as recreation has been a great part of their upbringing in this town. And they did from elementary school, they did after school programs, they did all kinds of programs, and we did the ski program when it was here. They did all kinds of acts, karate, you name it, they did it. And gymnastics, all that. So I just thought like so much that he has given to our family. I wanted to be part of something that will also so a way for me to give back. That was like why recreation attracted me and pulled me in. And yeah, so I have been in the recreation for 3 years now, and I'm just going to run in for re-election. So that's kind of a little bit about me. Any questions?
Well, let's let all the candidates speak, and then we'll take questions for all of you together, and everybody will have a chance to answer each question. Okay, so is Arthur Gibson present, and could we hear from him, please?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm Art Gibson. I've been in town since 2019. My background, I'm a software engineer. I have a Bachelor of Engineering degree. Went to UConn, so I have a love for college basketball. May have lost recently, but I just grew up an athlete and a student. A lot of my time was spent on baseball, basketball courts, and grew up in a community that really thrived with using the recreation department to keep the kids busy. Lots of town sports, and that was part of my life growing up and kept me active. Recently, we moved to town. My wife grew up and graduated in Weston. Her family has been here since 1970. Her uncle went to school at Weston High, so I've really become acclimated with the town. I've been on the Little League board for 7 years. Also run commissioner of some of the divisions. I've run the T-ball division, first and second, third and fourth, and really just help manage and coordinate some of the town baseball games, and have enjoyed it. Have watched the recreation department improve the town pool, put in pickleball, improve the tennis courts, the basketball courts, and just really want to take on the mantle there. I know Adam King is stepping down, and I know Chica has done a great job. So I just really feel like keeping the momentum going, considering that we're growing the town. There's going to be a lot more kids, and we do have an academically rigorous town, so it's good to have that sort of out of the school element for these groups. I know being an engineer, sitting in front of a computer all the time is not, conducive to, getting a wider perspective on life and building some of those team skills that come on the field. So at the most, I have like a passion for sports and community and team building. Have always been on a team. I've always sort of run and managed things. My professional career, I've been a CTO and a software engineer at startups. So definitely have been ground up and have helped organize and build teams and just watch projects grow to fruition. But yeah, I'm excited to help and just kind of carry a mantle, as I said. But thank you for having me, and look forward to just being part of the group here.
Thank you, Art. And next we will hear from Nick Warren.
Hey everybody, I'm Nick. My family and I moved to Weston almost 10 years ago in 2017. It's been an awesome place to call home. All three of our kids went through Red Barn Nursery School. We have Jack, who's 9, Olivia, who's 7, and Addie, who's almost 6. Now they're all at Woodland in kindergarten, first and third grade. So we're pretty deep in the Weston ecosystem at this point. And for any of you who commute down Merriam Street in the morning, you might recognize me by the guy who's walking the giant Bernese Mountain Dog stand. So feel free to honk. Huge part of our life revolves around the town's rec programs. I've coached my son's baseball team for quite a few years, so we're always at the fields, and we spend a extreme amount of time at the Weston pool in the summer. All three of our kids are obsessed with the town camps. We've tried to suggest other things to try, and we just can't get them to do it. So I would say we're power users. So none of this is theoretical for me. It's something my family experiences every single day. And we've seen how important these programs are. So with all the use that I'm giving the rec commission, I figured this is a chance to give back. I've some of my other experiences. I was on the board at Red Barn while my kids were there, and also on the board of a nonprofit, Birthday Wishes, which is basically throwing birthday parties for kids who are in shelters. Professionally, I'm in the real estate business and insurance business. So I started those companies back when I was 23. So I've really begun to understand how important the amenities, like a well-run rec department, are for a town, as well as obviously all the facilities that come with that. So naturally, think both experience for residents and how to make systems run efficiently is kind of my forte. I'd love to bring the same mindset to the Weston Rec Commission. Would love to continue kind of strengthening the youth programs. Obviously, like I said, we use them constantly. I've seen my kids, create friendships, grow confidence from these things. Would love to kind of, build on what's already established there. Obviously, looking at, long-term planning, the fields, courts, pool are some of the most valuable assets that we have in the community. So, we want to stay proactive and not be just reactive. So, kind of using that skill set and making sure that we're staying on top of that is another thing I'd like to focus on. Then obviously expanding programming for everyone, not just kids, as important as that is to me. I understand, all age groups really get a lot of value out of this. So making sure that we are able to provide that to everybody. Creating systems, processes, that's kind of my shtick with business. So I'd like to, continue to add that to the committee, and really continue making Weston such a special place. It's already got an incredible foundation, and my goal just to be built on top of that, by taking a forward-looking approach and, ensure all the programs and facilities continue to thrive for years to come. So I'd be honored to serve. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Is George Manley with us?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. How are you? I'm sorry. I'm in my
You're
car.
on.
I was all ready to do this from my office, and then I found out I have to rush out to my house in the Berkshires. We're doing a fundraiser for the EMS volunteers out there this weekend, and there's stuff we have to do tonight. My name is George Manley. I've been in town a short while, year and a half. I just got off my first volunteer role in town yesterday. I was part of the strategic planning committee with the superintendent and the school district. And that was a blast because I have 2 little kids. I have a kindergartner in Woodland, and I have a daughter who's 3 at the Montessori school at St. Peter's, Beacon Montessori. So they will have many years of the after-school program that's part of Parks and Rec. I spent the last 12 years living out in the Berkshires in Stockbridge. We have an estate out there, and I've been a real estate developer for quite a while. Most recently, I am working for the Jesuits. I'm their head of real estate for the East Coast, from Maine to Maryland, which includes all their universities, all their high schools, and of course the Campion Center. So I'm the one working on that project, should anybody have any questions. I also am a technology executive. I'm the CEO of a AI startup that is working with MIT. Out in Stockbridge, I was elected to the Parks and Rec department out there. I served a 3-year term and faced a lot of the same budgeting and project and planning issues that we face here in Weston, with the exception of the after school program, which was not part of Parks and Rec out there, but they have a much broader outdoor presence. I am a wilderness first responder. I've been a high elevation mountaineer for many years, so I have the outdoor experience as well. But I mostly wanted to run just because I think that, you know, you need to be part of the community. It's the easiest way to really show that you're committed to being a serious member of the community and helping where you can. I always tell my kids that, you know, whenever you have a chance, you should volunteer and be part of the civic society that you're a part of. So I think no matter who you elect, it looks like you've got amazing options and nobody's going to lose here. I'm really excited to be part of the town, and I hope you guys will consider me.
Thank you very much, George. So actually, I have a question for you all. I was at the town caucus, and I know that you're all caucus nominees and will appear as such on the ballot in the town election. But I also aware that there was a vacancy, and I think it was a 1 or perhaps 2 year filling in for somebody else, and nobody has been nominated for that. So can I assume that whoever doesn't get elected will be stepping up for that shorter term?
But I could certainly commit to that.
Sure.
I mean, not that I want to have the shorter term, but I'll certainly fill it if I'm not elected for the other ones.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Art?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's uncontested.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's kind of exciting.
And Chica, you too?
Yes.
You're the only incumbent, I think. Is that right?
For which one?
Yeah. Okay, does anybody else have questions for these candidates? Please raise your hand Zoom-wise. I don't see anybody. Well, I think we're very lucky to have
I think Tech has.
all of you showing an interest in this. Yes.
Yeah.
Jack's hand is raised up.
Actually, I was just going to ask a quick question on it. What's going on at Campion since you mentioned that? Is there a short answer to that?
Yeah, it's never a short answer. I mean, I've spoken to just about everybody in town administration, from the fire department to Leon to the building inspector. You know, at this point, it's up to the Jesuits to decide what they want to do. That's not going to be my final call. I'm just the advisor and consultant. That I am a full W-2 employee of theirs, out of their New York office, the full province office. But they have a mission, and their mission is focused on you know, housing, taking care of the elderly, taking care of the sick. And so they are excited about the opportunity to do senior housing. And it'll probably be affordable heavy. That would be my push. Of course, the town would have to agree. But I know Tom and the HYM group over at Regis. I also know the Archbishop and the group that's working on the seminary project. Our project will be much, much more affordable than those two.
Thank you. I had a question for the rec commission that they have a lot of facilities now. What's the next push going to be? Because we've just built the tennis courts and we got the ball field. I play tennis at Birchwood Park a lot, so that's my bias. But what do you see for the
Well,
future?
I know there's a new playground coming at Birchwood Park. I know there's a big question around what's happening with the riding rink. I know there's some questions around trail maintenance and redirecting some of the trails to make them more focused, so there's not so much treading off trail and building trails that weren't originally intended to be built, so the wildlife can grow in there. I don't know, what do the other guys have anything that?
Yeah, so there's the new middle school and high school that's going to be pushed back onto athletic fields. At least that's the thought process to not, I don't want to speak too much into a committee that I'm not involved with, but so there will be plans for the new middle school and high school that may disrupt some athletic fields. There's a fire station development that seems to be planted on a middle school baseball field. So I do think like there is some thought to preserving or at least getting some community feedback on some of these projects as we go forward. So not necessarily building a new facility, but also just preserving what's there. So that's definitely some of my objectives, or at least something I've taken a kind of a closer inside look into.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
One,
work is very busy. It might sound like all we do is just build and fix and all stuff, but we do have a lot of things that we do that involves like maintenance to fields, making sure that like people are getting what they need, because our goal is to make sure that our community is very healthy, and like people come in with different ideas, we hear them out, we make sure that their ideas are considered. Like last couple of years, we have people that come in with like different idea about the pickleball was never a thing in Weston, so we had a group that came in. They were really interested. They were able to build a, a need for it and presented that to us. We were able to make it happen. So there's a different thing that comes, and that we are involving on the background and stuff like that. So like a lot of issues for different things, people will come in with ideas and things. Like right now we have somebody who's proposing a dog park in town, which we're currently working with to figure that out and make sure that it's going to the right channel to make it a possibility for a town thing. And then obviously someone just mentioned about the playground, another playground. We already have a playground, obviously, in Weston, but there's a more need. We're just concerned that there's not enough playground in Weston, which we are currently looking to find a way to make that happen. So there's a lot of things that we are doing, and obviously we're planning for the summer. We're planning for the camp. Like there's so many lot of things the rec does. Obviously we do like the parks are obviously something that we look into, and we have to monitor for the tracks and things like that. There's so many different ways that we make sure that the Western people are healthy. We look into programs that offers a tailored to different group of people, like the seniors, the younger group, the teenagers, like so different things that we try to make sure it's available and based on the needs and who has access to different things. So a lot of things come to the board, and so for us to look at and consider and things like that. So there's a lot of things that we do.
Yeah, and I know on the it may not come up in this term, but I met with the director of the Council on the Aging last week, and it seems to me like the two groups that are really growing in town are the young families group and then the seniors. And the Council on the Aging is going to need a new building soon. It probably won't come up in this term, but the idea of working towards helping them get more space, which would then either free up more of the rec center for more programming, or vice versa. The Council of the Aging takes over the rec center, and then we build a new rec center down the road. But these are things that eventually will be addressed, maybe starting with the Parks and Rec Department and the Council on the Aging, and then it would move to selectmen and town vote down the road. So starting that planning and figuring out what's possible as early as possible is, I think, a great thing.
Agreed. Thank you.
Any other questions for the Recreation Commission candidates? Okay, then thank you very much, and we will move on to the school committee race. Let's see. Adam, would you like to start us off? Adam Newman?
Yes, wonderful, Patty. Thanks so much. Appreciate everybody being here tonight, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting us. My name is Adam Newman. I've lived in Weston with my wife and 2 children for more than 15 years, and I am very proud and grateful to call this community my home. I've spent my entire career working directly in education, first as a middle school and high school teacher in the Boston area and New Orleans, and for the last 25 years as both an executive and as a leader of consulting and investment banking businesses that work in the education sector directly. I work closely with K-12 schools, post-secondary institutions, companies, nonprofits, foundations, and family offices, all of whom are focused on the education sector, stretching from early childhood through K-12 all the way into professional and corporate learning. We live in a remarkable community here in Weston. Our schools are among the very best in Massachusetts, and that's not by accident. It's because of the sustained commitment of our teachers, our administrators, our families, and this entire community that cares about our schools. I'm proud to have served on the school committee for the past 3 years, including this past year as chair. And during that time, I've had the chance and opportunity to work closely with our superintendent, our educators, fellow committee members, and others in the community to make decisions that affect every student and every family in this district. I want to start with something that I think we all agree with. This role is about students. Every decision we make at the school committee, whether it's a budget decision, a curriculum decision, a staffing one, about facilities, it's really about improving the experience and outcomes for students in the Weston Public Schools. One of the things, however, that's really important to understand about this role and has really been reinforced for me after watching folks in these roles for the last 25 years is the decisions are rarely simple. They involve trade-offs. They require balancing short-term needs and long-term priorities. They require weighing different perspectives across the entire district and community. Not just one group, not just one moment, not just one experience. And that's why this election matters. The question before voters as they consider school committee this cycle is not whether we care about students. We all do. We wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be seeking to do this role if we didn't. The question is, who's best prepared to help this community navigate the district and the community through the complex decisions and the high stakes decisions we currently have, and how will we get there together? Over the past 3 years, I've played a role both as a leader and a partner with my committee members on a host of issues facing our schools. We focused on our maintaining and extending our strong academic standards and opportunities for our students in the schools. We've made thoughtful, evidence-based decisions about how and where we use technology. We have focused on ensuring stewardship of our resources as a community and how we invest in the district. And finally, as was alluded to earlier, I think by Art, we're embarking on a community-wide discussion about one of really the most consequential decisions we will have as a community, what we will do with our middle school and high school campus. These are not theoretical challenges. These are real issues that require preparation, deep knowledge, judgment, and a willingness to have and lead collaborative conversations and to stand behind them. The other thing that I've learned, and I implicitly and the role has reinforced, is strong schools are built on trust. That requires clear and effective communication, transparency in how decisions are made, and a genuine partnership with families, educators, and our broader community. We don't always get everything right, but we are committed to listening, taking feedback, improving, and working to continue to earn that trust every day. As I look ahead, my focus for the next term is clear. We need to protect and strengthen the academic excellence of the Weston Public Schools. We need to continue to support and retain the outstanding teachers and staff. We need to make disciplined, student-centered financial decisions. And we need to lead the district and the broader community thoughtfully through a very significant long-term investment discussion and decision. Our schools are a priceless resource that needs to be led carefully, responsibly, and with a clear understanding of what is at stake. I'm running for re-election because I believe I can contribute and help lead these next important decisions for our community. Thanks for the opportunity and the time, and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Adam. And now Steve Dietz.
Thanks, Caddy. Caddy, I had just a quick set of slides that go behind my talk. Do you mind granting the sharing permissions there?
I think that would be fine. So I have to click allow, yes?
That sounds right to me.
Okay, I did that.
Looks like we are ready to go. That worked.
Yep.
There we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. And sincere thanks to Caddy and everyone at the League of Women Voters for putting on this event and for everyone who joined to learn more. As you can see in front of you, my name is Steve Dietz. My wife, Beth, and I moved to Weston a little over 5 years ago, and we moved specifically because of the schools. We have 4 kids in the schools right now. Abby's in 8th grade, Hannah's in 6th, Ben is in 4th grade at the field school, and Heidi, the one on the left there, our youngest, starts kindergarten next year at Country. One thing I'll point out is we rarely have representatives on the school committee who have children in elementary school. And so I think this is a great opportunity for the town to elect someone who will have one for 6 years. If you do the math, I'm going to have kids in the Weston Public Schools for the next 13 years. And every decision the school committee makes will impact my family directly, and that's why I'm here. A little bit of background for me. I grew up in Andover, Mass. My wife grew up in Wayland. I'm a graduate of Dartmouth College, and I work in technology at a software company. I've spent my career building things, analyzing data, and being accountable to results. And I came to this decision to run and ask for your vote because I'm a parent who started paying very close attention to what was happening in our schools. And I decided that paying attention wasn't enough. What I found as I started organizing with other parents is that there are a lot of families who care very deeply about the perspectives that I hadn't heard before. And listening to those people made my thinking a lot sharper, and that experience is why I'm here. So I want to go over just really quickly my analysis of where we are in the schools. To be honest, I've looked at the presentations for the last, I don't know, decade, and a lot of candidates have come before this group and shown you a chart just like this one. Weston spends on a per pupil basis near the top of our peer group, and I use a peer group of about 15 local schools that we would all, or towns we would all recognize. Our results are strong, and every candidate has said the same thing. We need to make sure to keep our spending in a very disciplined manner. What I'll tell you what's happened is that per pupil spending has actually flattened in the past few years, but not because we cut any spending. It's because for the first time in a long time, in the last 5 years, our enrollment has grown about 3%. And that is good fortune, but it means that we have a different challenge ahead of us. Almost every comparable district around us is shrinking. Wellesley is down 20%, Lexington is down almost 10%, and Weston is one of only 3 districts in the comparable group that's growing right now. The word is out. If you want a great public education, you move to Weston. And with the 3 development projects that are coming forward, probably in the next few years, that growth is going to accelerate. And that's a compliment to this community. But it also is a real challenge. With the school building project, the fire station, the water infrastructure, we need people on the committee who are going to ask ROI or return on investment questions every single day. And this doesn't mean austerity. It doesn't mean cutting. It just means the discipline to ask what every dollar actually buys and whether these decisions are actually here and thought through in the long term. I will say I'm not going to stand here and say that I or any school committee member can single-handedly reform everything about our budget. The union contract and the personnel costs are somewhere between 75 and 80% of the total spending on the schools. And those are big systems that move slowly over time. We're in the midst of a union negotiation right now. However, there are 3 places that I would highlight here, and there are others, but there are 3 that I'm running on that I do think the committee can have a direct impact on in the very near term. The first is how our students learn. I work in technology every day. I believe in what it can do. And because of that, I take very seriously the evidence about what it does in the classroom. The charts in front of you, and I recognize they're very small. I'll make sure that this presentation is sent around to everyone, and the sourcing behind it is also available. Is international data from an organization called PISA, tracking millions of students across dozens of countries. The relationship is very clear. More screen time in the classroom equals lower scores in reading, math, and science at every level of education and exposure. I'm part of a group that pushed for a bell-to-bell, device-free policy in the school because this research changed my mind. I'm not anti-technology. I work in technology, but I want decisions about devices in our schools to be driven by evidence, not convenience. I'll note this is actually something I injected into the speech just an hour ago. I think it's really exciting that the state of Massachusetts, the House voted 129 to 25, and the Senate voted 38 to 2 to put this policy that we led on last year into law. It's really exciting. The force that we're fighting against there is that the ed tech industry, which is a billion-dollar industry, multi-billion-dollar industry, and the districts are constantly bombarded with pitches for new platforms and devices. We need people on the committee who are going to be evaluating these decisions with the same rigor we apply to how we do all the other parts of our curriculum and learning. Second, teacher impact. This is very personal for me, of course, as it is for anyone whose kids are being taught in the schools right now. I've seen up close what it looks like when teachers feel supported and what it looks like when they don't. Nationally, teacher satisfaction has hit historic lows. Only about 1 in 3 teachers say they're satisfied, and the research is clear that effective school leadership cuts turnover in half. The other thing I would say, people think about teacher retention in the school and they only talk about pay and budgets. But the reality is that anyone who's ever had a job knows that what keeps great people is not just what you pay them. It's whether they feel their expertise is respected, whether they have a voice in decisions that affect their work, and whether leadership sets clear expectations and then trusts them to deliver. Weston needs to be the district where the most passionate educators in this state want to go to teach. That does not cost more money. It takes great leadership. And I'll give you a concrete example. This district a few years ago eliminated 2 of the 3 internal curriculum specialist positions. I don't know about the decision. It may have been the right one. It may have been the wrong one, but I assume part of it was to control costs. Right now, though, we hired a curriculum consultant to choose our new elementary school reading curriculum. And we also paid the same consultant to run an implementation project to implement that curriculum. I don't know whether this was a net cost savings or whether it saved or whether it was more expensive. I'll tell you that it looks interesting to me, and I would want to know more about how we made that choice. The last one is excellence. Weston has a reputation that families move here for. 47% of our high school students take AP exams, and 92% of them score a 3 or better when they do take them. This is extraordinary, and we should be very, very proud of our students. And I want to follow this by saying I believe in high standards. And that is not just because I think they serve the kids at the top of the class, but because they serve every child. I have one child, for example, who's on an IEP and is someone who I think struggles in many regards. And one of the things that we've seen most powerfully in her education is the power of making sure that she knows not just what the standards are, but how we can help her get to those standards, not by lowering them and creating something that's an easier bar for her to pass. Two more points or slides that I'll go over here. I want to show you this picture. This is the school committee meeting almost exactly a year ago, where parents filled the room over the device-free policy at the Case House. People are probably familiar with that room. It's standing room only. For those of you who had not been to a Weston School Committee meeting, these are not often sellout affairs. Parents wrote letters, showed up, made their position clear. Over 600 individuals signed a petition for the bell-to-bell policy. And look, here's the truth of the way all this all happened. The current school committee chair, he wasn't the chair at the time, Adam Newman, volunteered to write a bell-to-bell policy in 2 weeks. Over a month passed and no policy was forthcoming. And then finally, when we did get a policy and it came to a vote, he voted no against the clear, overwhelming preference of this community. And I want to be precise about what I'm saying here because it matters. I'm not questioning anyone's expertise or credentials, and I'm definitely not questioning their intent. I'm questioning whether certain members of the committee are listening to the community they purport to represent. There's a difference between governing an institution and being accountable to the community it serves. There's something else that I think is really important for everyone in the community to consider while they vote. And I want to say this respect and say it very carefully. Anyone who volunteers their time to serve on the school committee deserves our thanks, and that includes Adam. About 20% of Weston families send their children to private school, and that is a completely normal and unremarkable thing when you live in Weston. But when you as a voter are choosing who should sit on the committee that oversees the public schools, I think you should prefer to have someone whose children attend the schools. I send all 4 of my kids to Weston Public Schools, and Adam does not. That's not a criticism. I think that's entirely his right, and I don't really care that he does. But I think it's a distinction that voters should know about, and it's something they should consider when they vote. I want to close by showing a picture of my kids, which is a picture that I think every family in this town has. My family loves this town. Like I said, Beth and I grew up in various parts of the state, and we moved here for all the things that I think everyone talked about. We care deeply about the intimacy of the community. I stand on the town green and with a kind of dopey little look on my face and can't believe that I'm 12 miles from Logan Airport. We're really very lucky. But the education is really important. And I'm running because I want Weston to remain among the best public school districts in this state for all of the kids in all of these pictures. And that will not be able to be done by coasting on our reputation, by actively earning it every year, every decision. I really appreciate the time and attention that everyone here is giving. And it's really hopefully going to be an honor to serve you on the school committee. And I would really appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Are there questions for the school committee candidates? Yes, Al or Adrian?
Adrian, this question for both Steve and Adam. At this point in time, how old would you say that neuroatypical children are being served right now? And I ask that because we're older now, but we've had experience in our family with programs that work, do not work, work. Could you each evaluate how well these children are being helped? Thank you.
I'm
Sure,
happy
Ken,
to start,
you wanna-
Steve, if you want.
Sure.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually have direct experience with this. And again, I'll try and keep names out of it. But so one of our daughters um, is exactly the type of person that you would describe or described in your question. And we had taken her for evaluations at a private institution. We were working in the prior town that we lived in, the school district, and really had not gotten great results. And when we moved to Weston, honestly, we didn't move to Weston because of this, but we knew about Weston's reputation for helping children in this, this sort of category. There was a woman named Kate Rogers. I believe Kate's now at the field school, but she was at Country at the time. And Kate absolutely figured out how to help Abby. It was a really remarkable experience for us. Really affirming experience for me personally about the schools and why we had moved here. On the broader question, I don't think Weston is perfect. I definitely think there are parts of the district that we can improve in this area, but I do think we have a well-deserved reputation for being a town that does serve this community. If you look at the budget, we invest a substantial number of dollars in this area, and that's something I very much support. And as I look at potentially being on the committee, I think it's just something that this town can continue to do. So that's my point. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, and thanks for the question, Adrian. I think a couple of things. So one, we actually have, and we'll be reading out a little bit later this spring. Every year we do a series of reviews of different programs at the district. And so right now we're actually coming down the final stretch of actually the review of our special education program and our special education department. So we did an internal review that was read out to us as a committee and a community earlier in the fall. And now we have the external portion of that happening. And so we will have, usually for these program reviews, there are 5 or 6 folks outside the community who are experts in different areas who are selected. As a community, we identify for them 4 or 5 key issues that we feel are critical from a self-improvement and self-assessment perspective. And so we're several weeks away from getting those findings. And so I think I think those will be very important, and those will help set for us a set of priorities and direction about, where we are serving students excellently, as Steve, identified, and then where are the places where we need to get better. I think the second thing that's really important is, our current superintendent has a background in student services. She started off in healthcare, working, in various areas, and brings a strong orientation to student services, an incredibly strong knowledge of that, and an expectation for excellence. Again, there's always room for improvement, but I think that's also really valuable for us as a community.
The reason I brought this up is because with children like this, there's a special window of time, and it's probably from like the 2nd grade until about the 10th grade. The little lady that I was talking about is now entering graduate school because she got the right attention at the right time in her life, and she'll be doing a PhD program. This did not occur in Weston, but I think it's a really important thing because people are having children later in life. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Barath.
Hi, guys. My name's Bharat. I'm the chair of the finance committee. But just asking as a resident here, what is your philosophy about the school budget? As you said, there's a certain percentage of students who go to school here, but the vast majority of the town does not actually have any students in school. So what I want to know is what your philosophy is in terms of increase in school budget year over year, and how you intend to work with the finance committee on managing those budgets. Thank you.
Adam, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. Yeah, I think totally appreciate that, Barath. Thanks for joining tonight. Listen, I think the first 2 years I was on the committee was really interesting because the budget happened somewhere else, even though I was on the committee. And then as a committee member, we sort of were presented with, a number. And I think, what's really important is the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? What is the narrative about the decisions we're making? What is the impact and benefit we are getting? And what are the long-term, short and long-term implications? And so this year for the budget process, we evolved it a little bit, right? The internal leadership team continues to work from really the beginning of the school year to sort of refine and sharpen their priorities. But what we asked them to do, instead of just coming out and giving us a number and a set of recommendations, we asked them to come in December and facilitate a conversation about why. Why were they making the investments they were going to make? Where were they making adjustments from a cost perspective? What was the rationale behind what they were trying to achieve to get us to the outcomes and the objectives that we have as a community, as a district? And I think that was important and it was great. And what it enabled us to do was have a more fulsome conversation. We had, I think, it wasn't as big as the meeting Steve referred to earlier, but I think we had some more people participating in that discussion earlier. And I think ultimately, Barack, that sharpened the thinking of the budget that we then brought to FinCom, and some of the questions that we had. Like, listen, there are concerns I have with our budget. We all do. I think our transportation costs, if you look at our budget over the last several years, have continued to spiral. And I'm concerned about how much time and energy as a school committee we devote to running a transportation department. I think that's an area that we need to look at and think really hard about. I think that we need to think about, the challenge with schools is enrollment growth is good, but I think we need to continue to look at, are there other ways that we can sort of generate any incremental revenue to support some of the investments that we want to make as a community? I think we need to have a discussion about that. I know at the tail end of last year, one of my colleagues who was on the school committee at the time, my Gooch introduced, some fees. It was a little bit late in the year, and it was a broader discussion that needed to be happen. But I think it's an important discussion that we need to have about our schools. So I think the first is transparency, a discussion about what are our thematic investments, what do we expect to get out of them, and hopefully, continued and more robust discussion about that. That's in the short term. Obviously, the long-term issue is a community-based one, which is, what are we going to do with our middle school and high school plan? And I think that is as you know, there's a school building committee that's been established with representation from several different parts of the community. That's going to be a community discussion. It's going to be an important one, but it's going to be a community discussion. So I'll stop there. Hopefully addressed some of the issues. To me, transparency and making sure the why and the what is very clear to folks is paramount.
Steve?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great question. I mean, it's arguably the most important or among the most important questions for the school committee. In our proper role, we do budget, we do policy, and we hire the superintendent. I think that's really the three things that those committees should do. I will echo one thing that Adam said, which is, I really think that having a return on investment mindset for literally every dollar, we have to think very carefully. I'd go back to the slide that I presented before. What's very interesting about when you actually, and honestly, when I moved to town, I had this perception of Weston as a very high spending town, and it definitely is. There's no arguing with it. And then when you dig underneath the data, there's some interesting things going on, and really that enrollment trend is the change if you relative to historical trends. And that's one where it's both an opportunity, but also a challenge. It could be a challenge to class sizes. It could be a challenge to just facilities overall. But there is a change here that we have to keep our eyes on. I also think that, what the town overall and every single resident that I think the question was really well pointed is we have to look at the overall financial picture of the town. And it's not just a cost perspective, it's also a revenue perspective. And there are opportunities, particularly in the 128 corridor, to potentially generate revenue that does not impact the culture of the town or the makeup of the town at all, that I think can, fundamentally add to the plus side of the ledger as well. And then, the final thing I would close is, look, when people talk about the school budget, they focus rightly on the 75 to 80% of it that goes to personnel. And that is the biggest source of dollars. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we should therefore then ignore the other 25%. And what I'll tell you is there are places there where we're spending on things like the consultants I mentioned on the curriculum change, and our IT budget went up $580,000 this year, and that's 1% of the total budget, right? There are places where we really need to think more carefully about ROI, and I think the 60+% of families in town who don't have kids in the schools actively would expect that the people who do are always very careful with those investment dollars.
Patty, I just want to respond to a couple things to Steve's last point, just to clarify a couple items for folks. Regarding the implementation of our K-5 ELA program, I just want to share why we have consultants, why we've moved from learning specialists to curriculum coordinators at the elementary level. We had a broken K-5 ELA program, which is to say we did not have a method or a process for instructing our students effectively around how to read, right? Several years ago, we put pressure on the district to focus on the science of reading, which is a very established, an incredibly evidence-based approach to that. As part of that, one of the things that was challenged, we had wonderful elementary school teachers, don't get me wrong. They were all practicing and sort of teaching kids to read a little bit differently. And the result was not everybody was getting to third grade at the right reading level and with the right skill set to be successful. So when we as a district elected to sort of standardize our K-5 ELA program to ensure that every student should be reading and could be reading and would be reading by third grade, part of that was to bring in professionals to teach us the science of reading, which is a very complicated and unfamiliar sort of approach to teaching reading for folks who historically have used different methods, right? Lucy Calkins is a name a lot of folks have heard about. That was the method that we had been using. It does not work. We do not use it anymore. But in doing that, we needed to support our teachers and make an investment in equipping them to be effective as we transitioned. So I just want to be clear that the consultants are here to ensure that the investments we're making in our new reading curriculum from EL Education and is really having the types of outcomes that I think Steve rightly is pointing out is critical for us. We do not want kids getting to fifth and sixth grade, as had been the case, and actually being deficient in reading relative to where they should have been. Second quick thing on the technology front, a big chunk of that budget this year is a upfront 3-year contract to renew our security software, right? Which is a one-time fee that really is spread over 3 years, right? So a chunk of that is a standard renewal cycle, and that's mission critical software to make sure that the security and the data that we have in our district is protected. I would also posit that we need to, and I agree with Steve here, we need to use technology thoughtfully in our district, and we also need to use it, and it's a place where we can drive more value and some efficiency, right? And some of how we do what we do to redeploy towards the classrooms. So part of that technology spend is some one-time upfront sort of renewals that are bubble payments that will not necessarily flow through in subsequent years. Thanks so much.
Okay, Anupam, you are first in the question group.
Okay, thank you. And my question is going back to the fundamental. It goes both to Adam and Steve, right? We also moved here for the school system 30 years ago, by the way, and our kids did extremely well. My son went on from Weston High to MIT to Harvard and so forth a long time ago. And the reason we thought that Weston was number one was on various metrics, related to academics and sports and so on. We were truly ranked number one in the state on all kinds of surveys. And so my question is, there's a lot of focus on our buildings and so forth. What do you think is that makes a school excellent? Is it bricks and mortar or is it something else? Because, as you know, our whole region is full of old bricks and mortars from Harvard to MIT to everybody else, and they still produce excellence. So that's number one thing. And the other concern is that I just saw the recent survey done by the Boston Magazine of our school systems nearby, and Weston did not rank one at all in any category on the top 5. We were below, I might be wrong on the thing, but we were below people like Acton, Boxborough in our math and reading and so forth. So what is it that you think, is excellent, and how do we get there, given that we are spending the most money and we are still not at the top of the heap as far as the Western surveys are concerned? Because that, of course, is driving up property values, and the other part that the 62% are looking for, right? And if we come out in these regional surveys as not performing at that level, then we should be concerned.
Steve, why don't you start with that one?
Yeah, thanks very much. And Anupam, I think it's a great question, and I love the sort of philosophical start to it, where you said what makes a school and a school system great. Um, and I think it's a couple of things. First and foremost, and I think this has been true when I was in school, and I can definitely see it in my children. The first thing is the teachers they interact with, the people day to day. This is certainly has nothing to do with why I'm running, but my mother-in-law was a substitute teacher in Weston schools 40 years ago, and that was always something that she talked about. She loved going to work because she was around all these people who just loved education. And what truly makes that our district great is, and I touched on this a little bit in my presentation, is like I think we can make this a great place for people who love to teach to come to work every day, and that will then get reflected in the quality of the education that they're providing. You also in your question sort of addressed, well, do fancy buildings make for great educational institutions? And I think the answer is absolutely not. I can think back to some of the buildings that I went to school in kindergarten, and I mean, they were literally falling down because I injured myself because they were falling down. And I think I'm, by no means think it's a foregone conclusion that we're at Weston, going to build several new extremely expensive schools. But I think that discussion should be around what's the right sort of long-term cost benefit analysis to the town, because there are really incredible maintenance costs that are coming up for those old really end-of-life buildings. And we have to consider those things too. Um, Sorry, I feel like there was one other thing in your question, Anupam, that I didn't want to let go of, but I just would come back to the community and the teachers are what makes these schools excellent, and we need to create a community where those people are really celebrated, and that's what I'm, one of the three things that I'm about.
Yeah,
Adam?
no, thanks for the question, Anupam. I want to just be clear. I wholeheartedly agree with Steve on what makes excellence. You look at the evidence of why students succeed in all schools across all types of environments, and it's the quality of the interaction between teachers and students. When that is high quality, students flourish, and when it is not, they don't. So it starts and stops with human-centered interaction and connectivity between teachers and students. I think the other thing that it depends upon is a sense of trust and a sense of collaboration and a sense of partnership that exists between and among the key stakeholders in that school community. And that's the teachers, the building leaders, the district leaders, and obviously the families and guardians of the children in those schools. Um, you know, Folks need to be able to have difficult conversations. I thought the cell phone conversation we had last year was tremendous. It was wonderful to see that many people come out and participate in a community discussion about an issue that was important about the schools. There were no winners and losers in that discussion. What there was a phenomenal, earnest commitment to thrash through hard issues, to talk about things that were important to the community, to make a decision, and to move on. And that's what we're doing. Um, it was a nuanced, thoughtful conversation, and we need to have more of those. That's what drives excellence all up and down our school system. As it relates to the buildings, I appreciate the question, Anupam. I mean, listen, the the diversity of environments where school and learning is happening in the wake of the pandemic is as varied and innovative as it has ever been. Will it come to Massachusetts anytime soon? Probably not, unfortunately, because we are a earnestly blue state for what it's worth. But it's a very good question. We are at a point in time where what schools look like, what parents want out of schools, and where learning happens is much more complicated and much more complex than simply sitting behind a desk in a room, right? Or around tables in a room. Um, I think at the same time, we have sort of an elephant in the room right now, which is we have been accepted into this program by the Mass School Board Building Association. And so as a community, hopefully we can take the conversation you're asking here and really have an earnest conversation as a community about that, right? Because ultimately, that's what's going to get us to the right and best place. There are tremendously powerful and thoughtful perspectives on what that could or should be. And I think we should give ourselves permission to have that conversation. Um, that's where the learning will occur.
Thank you for your
Question from George.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'm gonna stay off video because I'm back on the road. But Steve, you had mentioned earlier in your opening talk about screen time and some of the research that you've read around that. I'm just curious for both you and Adam. Um, Screen time tends to have a negative connotation, and it tends to kind of refer specifically to phones and tablets and whatnot. But in this dawn of AI, with these tools being ever present, and they will be a huge part of who we are as future leaders and workforce personnel. Is like, how do you guys want to incorporate AI and technology in general, inclusive of screen time? Because using AI more, if that's what the school district decides to do, may end up meaning more screen time in some cases. What are your feelings on that, and how do you see modern technology being adopted into our curriculum?
Adam?
Hey, thanks, Caddy. Thanks, George, for the question. Layered one and a good one. I think so. A couple thoughts, right? I mean, I've been in the space and watching technology for a long time. When I started this work, like when I was in the classroom, we had I remember we spent at the school I was at, we spent an awful lot of money to put a single computer in the back of every classroom. We bought what was then floppy disks. Um, and of a $5+ million budget, we saved like $50,000 for teacher training. Okay. Not a good investment, right? Very, very much glorified doorstops. I think we need to start with technology as a tool, as you alluded to. Um, And we need to educate and have a conversation as a community about what is the role of this tool in our schools, at what stages, to what end, and what is it that our children need to be prepared to do at different stages and ages. Um, it's interesting. When I first got on the committee, and in your first year, you're always learning how to, definitely not a job you know how to do the first year, to be clear, right? Um, I remember in the offsite we had that summer, one of the things I asked to do as a priority for my first year was to actually have us do a learning journey for that first year around technology in schools. And not for the district to make any decisions, but for us to sort of engage the community and basically host a series of conversations about what is it that we could do or should be doing and thinking about the role we want technology to have in our schools. We didn't do that. The feedback was we don't have time for that right now. And I regret that we didn't pick that up. And I regret this year it got squeezed out as well with the negotiations and the strategic plan and all the things we're doing. But I think, from my vantage point, we need to equip our educators first and foremost to feel confident and comfortable because they don't feel as comfortable as, frankly, the kids walking into the schools with how to use the technology. So if they're not comfortable and confident, it's hard for them to be guides and leaders and coaches to students about how to use technology effectively. I think, we had a digital literacy presentation a couple weeks ago. I thought it was a good start. I've got a bunch of thoughts that need to be shared with Dr. Trahan. I think now's not the forum to fully get into it, but I think it was a good first effort around a layered approach to thinking about what we need and should be doing. The third thing I'll just highlight, and I've seen this, this is the fallacy, and Steve alluded to it, right? Like ed tech, which is not a term that I use or am fond of. Ed tech has overpromised and underdelivered. Technology has two functions in schools. It can enhance productivity and it can deliver better outcomes. It does a pretty good job, still could be better, on the productivity front. There are lots of ways to save time for teachers, to save time for administrators, for parents with thoughtful uses of technology. Technology as a driver of student outcomes is still problematic. And part of the challenge of the industry, right? And again, have had a front row seat at it for 25 years, is, they've sold and promised a set of outcomes from an academic standpoint that aren't always delivered. So agree we need to prepare our students to be successful in the world. We need to do so thoughtfully. And we need to benefit from the experience of folks like yourself in the community and help our schools and our district graft that into their thinking.
Steve.
Yeah, and George, again, thank you for the question. I'm gonna have to restrain myself because I could talk for the entire 2 hours about this topic. I really love it. And you know, as I said in my intro, I work in the software industry. Nothing to do with education. We make real estate software, but it's a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And so I would say three things about it. So first of all, what we often see as parents in particular, and then with our kids, is technology as a tool. Like it has replaced the books in the backpack fundamentally. I mean, my kids mostly they don't come home ever with books in their backpack unless it was a book that they brought to school. And on that front, technology as a tool, we've totally overdone it. And I actually think Adam said it right. I think a lot of the teachers, for them, this is not just about convenience, but about quality of life. You know, for them, Google Classroom, Power School, some of these other tools, it does make it reduces the administrative load on the teachers to have some of these tools. But I think where we haven't really been thoughtful is what the impact is on the students and on the parents, to be on the receiving end of everything that goes on inside of those tools. And you know, the revenue model for those tools is the schools and the school districts are the payers, not, you know, ultimately the parents do through their taxes, but the customer is the schools and the administrators. And so that's where the products are optimized. You know, I'd go back to like when learning is delivered through those tools. And I think, you know, parents with young children will see this in the Weston School District that as young as third and fourth grade, they're receiving the majority of their learning through Google Classroom. I mean, the reading curriculum has substantial portions of it in the fourth and fifth grade where kids are watching videos in Google Classroom. And so there's clearly that something's gone wrong on the education or the technology as a tool there. That's very different, though, than educating kids about technology and how it works. And that's a place where I think that we can, it's not necessarily do more or educate kids in a deeper way about it. But I think more and more, and particularly, I mean, we are all seeing endless things about AI and LLMs in our daily life today. Knowing more about those tools, how they work, what they're good at, what they're not good at, the impacts they have on energy consumption, the list goes on and on and on. That's the place where we could probably do more, if I'm honest with you. I think look, we are very lucky in Weston. We have great extracurriculars in math and engineering and computer science and things like that. And I really think that the more that and I would say this even in my own life, like AI has totally turned the software industry upside down in the last 6 months, and people who follow the stock market in the last few months can see that for sure. And it's something that the more that we can help our kids understand, I think the better. But that's very different from how they learn, which is something that I think the evidence shows that the ratio should be biased towards analog. The last thing I'll say is, and this is more philosophical, but it's a place that I would really love for Weston as a district and as a community we have the opportunity and the resources to be a leader in this. The nature of what it means for our children when they graduate from high school, the world that they are going into, and particularly if you go into your typical desk jobs, that world is changing extremely rapidly right now. And so I think, and the good news for me, and I'm, you know, I see both sides of this, is I think really that the beauty and uniqueness of what humans provide, the creativity, the judgment, the interactions, those types of skills, I think are going to become more and more valuable rather than just, you know, the ability to sit at a desk and pound on a spreadsheet for 20 hours at a stretch. And so I think it really goes out. And what I'd love to do over the next term or two is start to think about what does it mean, particularly in the high school, to be graduating kids into this world where a lot of the jobs that for sure I did, for sure my dad did as a lawyer, my mother did as someone who works both in health and in medical research, like those jobs are changing dramatically. And the more we can educate the kids on how the technology works and still have those human qualities of judgment and caring and community, that's actually a super cool opportunity, and we can do that as a community.
Thank you, Steve. Gwen, you have a question.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Steve and Adam. And also just this is so great. I have my 11-year-old son here wrapped in his blanket, blurred on my messy background, watching democracy. So I'm so glad we're having this debate. I think it's really meaningful. I'm one of many parents who, in the last year, has taken to monitoring the school committee meetings. We take turns taking notes because we started to realize that things were happening that were really substantive that we felt like we didn't know enough about. And last night I woke up and I thought there was something that I wanted to ask about. And it was a June 2nd, 2025 school committee meeting. And in this meeting, Adam, you appeared to be encouraging administrators to consider promoting online courses to students. And this was a discussion back and forth about whether or not there were enough courses being offered so students in the high school could select the courses they wanted. And you came back around to it and you said, maybe we should be consider promoting online courses. It's something to consider. And I heard you just talk about kind of what the future of the classroom looks like. And so my question is, you obviously have extensive background and you're in the business of consulting, and it appears from your website, maybe some investment banking, as you said, in companies that are in this educational technology space, however we call it, ed tech. As a parent who is really concerned about not only what my child is, how they're being educated, but how they're being receiving it, and also what my tax dollars are going to, how can we be confident that you're being objective about this when you're in the business of serving those companies? Like, for example, does your company service any online classroom providers? And also when your students aren't in the school. And it causes me to be concerned. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity right here to address that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Gwen. I appreciate it. I mean, listen, a couple things. One, every year, every 2 years, as a school committee member, as an elected official in the state of Massachusetts, we go through an ethics, state ethics commission. We go through a conflict of interest law, right? I think it would be, I am doing this because I am bringing a perspective to bear. I do not make any decisions about what products or services we use in our schools, right? Those are decisions that are made by the district. So, for example, the ELA curriculum that we adopted, that was a decision that was made by the professionals as they evaluated different options. So there is no way, shape, or form that I am benefiting directly or influencing in any way decisions that are being made or sort of somehow organizations that I might work with. What I will say relative to that sort of example that you were referencing is I think it's a perfect example, and it gets back to actually Adrian's initial question around, neurodiverse and neurotypical students, which is one of the things that was fascinating during the pandemic was actually for certain segments of our students, online learning was really, really powerful and really positive because for various reasons, they struggled in a traditional classroom. And so I think in that discussion at that point in time, and this gets back Anupam, and actually, Steve, the third point Anupam had asked us about was, Weston wasn't number one in the recent Boston Magazine poll. So if we want to go back and answer that question, that was the third one that we both missed. What I was proposing, Gwen, at that point in time relative to that was really suggesting, hey, we are trying to create a diversity and range of options and opportunities for our students who are outstanding academically. And sometimes as a small district, right, we can't afford all of those. We can't have some of the classes that some of our students want. And that's what's that, that's the silver lining, the good part, if done responsibly, around where we are right now as an education sort of community and society is there are other options. There's dual enrollment that students enroll in. There are, virtual learning opportunities that are incredibly robust. So there's a range of things that we should challenge ourselves to consider. And that's part of, again, this idea of Weston's exceptionalism. Anupam, if I could go back to your question, like, I don't think being number one should be our end goal, right? At the end of the day, Harvard is never number one in all of the polls about the best colleges, but inevitably it's in the top five, it's in the top 10. No one doubts Harvard is the place you want to be. And I think we have that in Weston, right? What we have is Weston exceptionalism, and preserving and extending that and using the strength of the community and the resources that are available to us. That should be our focus when we think about Weston, because it has to work for Weston. And so that should be our priority. So hopefully Gwen answered your question and also piggybacked it a little bit for Anupam's question. So thanks for that.
I just wanted to clarify, I wasn't accusing you of having a conflict. It was more about objectivity. So I just to make sure.
Yeah,
you
no,
think
that's fine. But yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But it's yeah, you have to. It comes with the territory. And what I would say is, like, listen, I work with lots of organizations in the space that compete with each other, and I have for 25 plus years. And the CEOs and leaders of those organizations would not work with us and with my organization if we weren't objective. So, but I appreciate it. Thanks for the clarification.
Steve?
Yeah, thanks. Look, and I think that I'd give kudos to Adam for taking a tough question, and so I think that's a good answer. The only part really that they're in there for me, and I appreciate being reminded of what I forgot. Um, and Anupam on Weston not being number one. Interestingly, when you go through, some of the best data sources we have, I would say I have mixed feelings about. So, for example, magazine ratings, I'm not sure I'm particularly wild about those, if I'm totally honest. Although if I'm in the company of Acton Boxborough and Concord Carlisle and things like that, I think we're in pretty good company because those are terrific school districts with really, really dedicated educators. Um, if you look at another way to look at it, certainly not the only one, is our MCAS performance. Again, I have very mixed feelings about MCAS. Particularly, I have four humans sitting nearby me right now, and they all take the MCAS, and they all have very neurodiverse, abilities to handle standardized tests. But if you just used it as like a normalizing mechanism, Weston is actually consistently near the top of that almost every year, and you can go back a long way to see that. To be honest with you, I was expecting, based on some of the things I'd heard, that Weston had slipped substantially, and it actually really recent history, it's not true at all. And I do think Adam said it pretty well. Like, I'm less worried about being number one. And frankly, I hope we can just take our name out of the magazine ratings entirely sometime. I want to know, like, where are people voting with their feet? Because that tells me everything I need to know about really where people believe the best education is. And the data is unequivocal. The only district that even comes close to us when you consider per pupil spending and the enrollment changes is Carlisle. And we really have that reputation. I think the challenge and what you're rightly asks us is, how do you continue to maintain that given all of the inflationary pressures and everything that the town faces? And I think, we've laid that out tonight, really how we would focus on that. But I don't think there's any easy answers. And I appreciate the question.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, Steve. And also in Carlisle, the interesting thing too about Carlisle, right, is that's a K-8 district because they've got the high school. So they've got a smaller base and a more focused set of objectives, So
Lisa, your question.
Thank you for your responses, by the way. And of course, a much bigger debate for later as we go forward.
Thank you, Kathy. I have a question for Steve and then a separate question for Adam, if that's okay.
Sure.
Steve, you've emphasized the importance of listening to the community. So how would you translate that input into actual decisions where there are competing viewpoints? And how would you ensure you're representing all students and families, not just your own experience? I understand you have elementary school kids. How are you going to reach the needs of all families, all students, K to 12?
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question. So, a couple of things. So, first of all, I do think that I'll point forward a weakness for me, even if as I've done this campaigning, right? I don't have any kids in high school yet. We're right on, terrifying, but we're right on the cusp of that. And I actually really don't know a ton of high school families or kids whose youngest child is in high school and beyond. And there's a couple of ways. One is I think surveys do work, and I think we should do those and continue to do those. I think that, one thing that the committee I think has tried to do, but I don't know how much we do, is to get out into some of the social events and there's WEEPC events, there's PTO events.
What are you doing?
And for me, I actually kind of look forward to doing more of that. I don't think there's any magic bullet here. What I'm trying to do as I run here is be very transparent about the things where I have a strong point of view and I think I've put forward 3 of them tonight. And the rest of them, like I can guarantee that people have been on the committee for longer than the meetings that I've attended, have a better view of, for example, the high school schedule and some other issues that come before some of the high school students. And those are places where I need to be just a sponge and learn as much as I can. And I don't think there's any way for me to prove that to you other than to put it out there that's really my goal, and then for people to hold me accountable to that going forward. I just want to make sure, Lisa, that I covered everything. I know it was a good question.
Yeah, I want to know how you will translate your input into actual decisions when there are competing viewpoints. So thank you for being frank, and you have children in elementary school. I have children in high school and college, so I'm on the other spectrum of it. So, your child's needs at the elementary school are very different from high schoolers and beyond. And so how do you translate that importance of listening to the community into actual decisions when there are competing viewpoints?
Yeah, and I don't think in your question you're saying that they're sort of competing between an elementary school issue and a high school issue. I think it's more competing interests. And I'll take I think the cell phone policy. I think there are actually really good viewpoints on both sides as an example of that cell phone debate. And I think that really what I would seek to do in any of consider competing points of view is really 2 things. And these are not rocket science. It's number one, we have to look at the data. And along a lot of these things, there actually is a lot of emerging evidence. It's not going to be true about every topic, but on a lot of these things, they are very well studied and we can rely on these things and we should just do so. And then the second one is, I think the tendency on these committees can sometimes be to try to please everyone, and that satisfies nobody. And also, by the way, it's how you end up with kind of a bureaucratic morass. And what I would rather do is have pretty direct and honest conversations about we're going to make a choice, we're going to move on. I think speed is important in making decisions. And then if we get it wrong, like the good news is most of these decisions we make are not one-way doors, and we can actually reconsider what we've done if we need to. But thanks for the question.
Okay,
Lisa, I'm gonna ask you to hold your second question because there are three people waiting in line who haven't asked their first question yet. We'll get back to you if we have time. Sarah.
Hi there. Good evening. I know it's getting pretty late, and so I'm just very appreciative of everyone that's made it this long. And Caddy, thank you so much for hosting the forum. It's been so interesting. Um, my name is Sarah Carney. I'm a mom of three Weston public school students. I was one of those 600 parents who added my name and public comments to the school committee to ban cell phones during the school day last spring. As has been said many times, we presented significant data and expert testimony, which, by the way, we have so many incredible experts that are parents and other community members in Weston. We have to leverage that expertise for the benefit of our schools and our students. And so we presented this data and expert testimony and this record-breaking parent support. And Adam, you still voted no on adopting the policy. Yesterday, the Massachusetts House passed the cell phone and social media ban for schools in a vote of, as Steve said earlier, 129 to 25. And so, Adam, my question is, in hindsight, do you still stand behind your vote in Weston? And how would you reconcile that vote with your commitment to engagement with and listening to community members?
Yeah, no, thanks, Sarah, for the question. Totally appreciate it. I mean, so the first thing I would say is like we're moving forward. We made a decision as a committee. Like I was on the opposite side of a 3-2 vote, and we're moving forward to Steve's point. Like we make decisions, we have good conversations. If you go back, and I think you were at many of the meetings, I am fully support a ban in K-8. That was never the issue, and that was never the for me the challenge. For me, I think what the missed opportunity was perhaps was for a more nuanced conversation about what that experience and that transition looked like at the high school level, and to do that in coordination with the teachers and the students at the high school, right? Lisa just asked a question that was a little bit about, competing interests or perspectives and, sort of, hey, Steve, you got an elementary school perspective. I've got a high school perspective. Those are different. How do you reconcile those? I think what we were trying to do and where I was coming from in that discussion was trying to reconcile what was, a very sort of very important and forceful and I 100% agree with perspective of parents of younger students with the realities, going back to George's question a few minutes ago, is, these are kids who are going to go out into the world and how do we want to think about this? To me, the biggest issue was, and we talked a little bit about it again relative to George's question, is it wasn't just about the device, but it was also about what's the community, the experience, and the trust and that we want to build with our students at the high school level. And so for me, that was the part of the discussion that I felt, candidly, we pushed through and passed. But the reality is, it was a great discussion, a lot of good perspectives. Everybody learned something. We made a decision and we're moving forward. So I honestly, Sarah, I don't reflect on it too much anymore because there are so many other things that are important for us to be contending with right now. But thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have a question from Kate Kinlan.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
We don't see you, but we hear you
How about now?
now. Yes, you're good.
Sorry about that. My name's Rob Kinlan. I've got three boys, 10, 8, and 5.5 through fourth, second, and kindergarten classes. My question is for Adam, and it's more sort of, I want to be careful about how I ask the question because I don't mean for it to be um, disrespectful in any way. It's more out of curiosity. Is where Steve has a number of kids in the school. My question comes from you, as I understand it, you do not have children in the school. I'm just curious about maybe what's behind that decision in conjunction with your interest in the membership, or excuse me, in the committee.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Rob. So my kids both went through middle school in the Weston schools. It was a great experience for them. They still are incredibly well connected to many of their friends in Weston. They also, unfortunately, were in school during the pandemic, and the pandemic experience had an impact on them that was an impact. And so coming out of the pandemic, we made a decision that was in the best interest for our kids at that point in time. And that's what led to our decision. And I think all of us here who care about our kids, because we all do, are
Sure.
always going to put the needs and interests of our kids above and beyond anything else. So that's the short answer to the question.
Yeah, and if I could just step in here a little bit, I actually, in a strange way, I want to defend Adam a little bit. I really want to emphasize, and I think it's important for the school committee that we recognize that, and someone cited the statistic, it was a little different than I had it earlier, but I think it's 36% of the households in the school district have kids in the public schools. And what we can't do is alienate or ostracize anyone who doesn't. And in particular, I mean that's just math because that 60+% of the people or households who don't are funding, and I think it's to their benefit for sure, but they're funding our schools and vote for it. I think that what we want to do here as a town and as a community is just thoughtfully make decisions about how we represent the community on the committees. And I think that's really, really important. The last thing, just to go back on the question before, and I think what I will emphasize, and it's also something that Adam said, is the important thing, and the cell phone policy is no different than anything else. The important thing is to get opposing views out on the table and to have that debate. I think the struggle in the cell phone issue was there wasn't an oppositional point of view stated. And George, I think your question, meaning that there was obviously a very energetic camp for a bell-to-bell policy, but the actual how does it impact kids from a learning perspective? There was no counter argument, and I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. And George, I'll go back to your question about technology and appropriate use. And like all families, like we've wrestled with the decision about when to get our kids phones, and our 14-year-old now has one, which a little part of me kind of dies inside when I think about. But I think it's important and inevitable. Is that I don't think having phones inside the schools makes any difference in a child's ability to learn about or how to work with technology. In fact, I would argue quite the opposite. And the reality is, I work every day in technology, and I watch adults, of all ages struggle with focus when they have an unlimited internet device in front of them. And I just think it's common sense that even the strongest among us really struggle with focus when we have that. And I think it's really that simple. So look, and the other thing is, as we said, we've made a choice here as a town. I think it's the right choice, but it's something that we're going to see. And when this rolls out in September, there are almost certainly going to be issues with how we roll it out, and we'll have to figure it out. So I know there's more questions, so I'll be quiet at this point.
Okay, Alex, your question.
Yes, thank you, Caddy. I just want to announce something I think everybody can get behind tonight. Both the boys and the girls lacrosse teams beat Wayland today. So, the grudge match, we're number one. We're number one at least in one place.
Great.
Who's still laughing? Is that Tack still laughing? Thank you, Tack. My question is this, Steve, if I may call you Steve, if that's all right. I don't think we've ever met.
Please.
Steve, your background is in writing software for commercial real estate Adam, you've spent 30 years in education, both as a teacher and founding and running two educational consulting businesses. Steve, the question is for you first. How will your professional background be beneficial to Weston School Committee?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's a couple of things. The part of my background that I skipped over for time is the first call it 9 years out of college. I worked in investment finance, and as I joke, then I moved into startup technologies because I wanted to be broke. And really, the number one from a skills perspective thing that I think that I'm going to bring is a focus on finance. It's in my again, I sort of joke with people that you can tell how people think and the way they analyze problems by whether they open a notebook, a spreadsheet, or a PowerPoint when they go to do something. And I'm a spreadsheet person. And so I do have a deep interest in and set of analysis as an investor, and as how we get the best return on our investment. I think professionally, the second way, and you've heard it, so I'm not going to repeat anything here, but I really love technology deeply. And I think all of the different ways that technology empowers our kids, challenges our kids, helps our teachers, hurts our teachers, makes our administrators more efficient, all of these things. I mean, and I could laugh about the bus app that we rolled out a couple of years ago. That's my expertise. And, in some ways, I wish it weren't as much of a question that I think the school committee will have to deal with, but it is. It's omnipresent in a lot of the things that we talk about, how we learn, what's in the budget, et cetera. And I think I'm really well positioned from that perspective.
Adam, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Is that the same question, Alex? Professional experience,
Same
bring it to the
question.
school committees.
How will your professional experience be beneficial to the Weston School
Yeah,
Committee?
yeah. I mean, listen, I think I've actually sat in a number of the seats that we have in the district, right? I've sat in the classroom as an educator, and I understand, all that we imbue and expect of our teachers and how hard that role is and what we need to equip them with to be successful. Um, as we've talked about at different points tonight, like I see all the stuff that is hurtling at our school districts, from what we're using in the classroom to how we're contending with some of the financial challenges and the staffing challenges that we have. Um, and innovative practices as the world is shifting, and even what it means to be in school changes, right? And then I've been a parent with students, right, as all of us have been, who bring our own unique lens and perspective. And I know how fraught and hard and challenging these problems and challenges are. And I know that we are better together when we work on them. And so I bring, as a business owner, as a business leader, an ability to both understand where we need to go, and also as someone who's run a people organization for 15 plus years, as well as being in them, like how hard it is sometimes and the work that needs to be done to sort of move, folks along in that journey, right? The example of the adoption of our literacy curriculum is a perfect example. Like, we need to lift up our educators at times so they can be successful in the areas that we expect and need them to be. And so sometimes it might look like we're taking a step back to take like the 3 or 4 steps forward that's really critical. And so I think we need to, while I totally value and appreciate and respect like the idea, we've got to look at the spreadsheet. This is about people, and it's the human-centered nature of what teaching and learning is all about, that I think all of us have moved to Weston for and expect. And we've got to keep that at the forefront of how and why we're making the decisions we're making.
Thank you, Adam. We've gone a few minutes beyond 9, and that's okay because actually our Zoom isn't going to shut down till 9:15. So we could let Lisa ask her second question if you two candidates are willing to hang in there with us.
Look at
Yeah, please.
Okay, Lisa.
Oh, thank you so much, Kathy. I wanted to quickly touch back to, we had the discussion about the consultants, about our literacy programs.
Yes.
And I just wanted to comment on that. I was heavily involved in that kind of world. Steve, I just want to, and I can talk to you at a further time, programs, not having a consistent program. We had a lot of kids going to middle school that couldn't read. The school committee then had to hire reading interventionists at the middle school level. We had a lot of out-of-district placements. The district incurred a lot of significant costs to compensate for that. So the consultant actually is, and having a consistent program is actually saving the district some money. If you would like to have a further conversation about that, that would be great. There's some history there. I'd sit down and talk to you about it. So then my question to Adam, I wanted to do along the line of that was, what do you think the value of continuity and experience on the school committee is at the moment with the history of all we've been through and what we're going through and what's coming forward? What do you think the value of that is?
No, it's a great question, Lisa. And I think, listen, I mean, I really wanted to run for school committee, probably, Steve, when my kids were probably the ages of your middle ones. And my wife basically was like, you don't have time for your life as it is. Like, you can't run for school committee now. But I wanted to do it long before I did it, because when I moved to Weston, I moved, like everybody, not everybody, but like a lot of people, I moved for the schools. And one of the things that struck me is that, we've had a pretty tumultuous stretch here. If you think about school leadership is really hard across the country. The tenure of superintendents is at record lows, and in a lot of, the average is about 2.7 years. And so if you think about what we're trying to do as a community, we're trying to create a stable environment with a clear set of objectives and priorities and execute those in a world that is very hard. Whereas we've talked about tonight, there are lots of distractions. Every child is uniquely different. And we're trying to account for that. And we've had, a lot of transitions from a leadership perspective at the district. I think we would all agree it's hard to build a first-class team when your leader is continually new or recently new. And I think we've had a little bit of the same at the school committee level. And so again, I wouldn't argue like, hey, reelect me for stability's sake or for continuity's sake, but I do think as a community, we are not doing ourselves favors with the degree and level of turnover we've seen at the levels of leadership that are really critical for maintaining and sustaining excellence, right? It puts a lot of pressure on us as parents and as a community. And so I do think it's an important consideration as we think about our decision this spring.
Steve, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, I think I can't really extend on Adam's point at the end there. I mean, I do think there is an argument for stability, although I think that competence and not throwing any stones at him on that word, but that is something that people respond to before they respond to stability. Though actually, Lisa, the one thing that and I actually am familiar with a lot of those details, and partly that's because the issue that you're talking about, like children not being able to read, that was my daughter. That was the experience she had. Wellesley, where we moved from, had an exclusively Lucy Calkins curriculum. And I know Lucy Calkins is, there are arguments on both sides for that. But I think, as Adam said, the pure Lucy Calkins curriculum has been proven pretty much without a doubt to not work. And even Lucy herself has mostly repudiated it. And so that's a very personal issue for me. One of my children still gets phonics lessons to this day. And so, my question and the point about consultants was less about do we need help and should we be thoughtful about making curriculum changes? And for the record, I think that the curriculum changes we made are largely the right ones. My point was more that I think as a parent and someone who is not on the committee, the like how those decisions are made and all of the things that go into are very, very hard to see and inscrutable. And I do think sometimes, a place that we can all improve as a community is clarifying to the teachers why things are happening. And it's funny, like as I've gone through this process, I've been surprised, maybe I'm naive, but I've been surprised by the number of teachers who have approached me. And I'm sure they approach Adam with exactly these kinds of concerns. And I think it's something, it sort of turned my head a little bit where I just sort of thought, I think there's a bigger story here than just we had a real problem with teaching consistency. So look, I think we're well over, and I don't want to take the last word here, but I would just say I think this has been incredible. I never anticipated having this type of discussion and debate. Particularly, I'd never wanted to get into elected office, but I just want to thank everyone, Patty in particular, and I hope everyone votes at a minimum. And obviously, I hope you vote for me, but I hope you vote. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you both. It's been fascinating. And we did have 52 people here tonight in person. But as I mentioned in the beginning, this recording of this whole event will be available for anybody who wasn't able to join us tonight to see on Weston Media. And traditionally, we have more people viewing that afterwards than attending the actual event. So,
Thanks very much, Caddy, as well. Really appreciate the opportunity and concur with Steve. It was an incredibly vibrant and robust discussion, so thank you for facilitating that. And yes, people should vote.
people should vote on Saturday, May 2nd, and then go to town meeting on Monday, the 4th. So, good night, everybody, and thank you for being here with us.
Apologies to those whose questions we couldn't get to.
Sorry, what?
Apologies to those whose questions we couldn't get to because.
Yes, I just saw that they were raising their hands. Oh, well. Thank you.
Thank you, Caddy.
Thank you.
Jack. Yep.
Good night.